Have you ever felt like you were speaking a different language than the world around you? Like no matter how much you explain, no one really gets what you're trying to say. That's not coincidence. That's a curriculum. Welcome to the 23rd Evolutionary Challenge. It's Shadow of Complexity and the deeper challenge that lies beneath our collective struggle to be heard, to be understood, and simply be. First, I'll start with a short parable to help bring this understanding home. And that's the parable of the forest of 1,000 thoughts. At this point, please close your eyes and visualize the story I am about to share. There once was a young speaker named Cairo, born in a city obsessed with knowledge. In the city, children were praised not for their hearts, but for their vocabulary. Cairo's voice was sharp, complex, dazzling, and people listened. But one day, during an important speech, something strange happened. His words began tangling midair, forming knots, echoes over themselves. The more he spoke, the more tangled the air became. He was saying everything, yet nothing landed. He fled the stage in shame and vanished into the wilderness. For years he wandered the forest of 1,000 thoughts, a maze of branches shaped like sentences, and fog that whispered forgotten ideas, until one day, exhausted, he sat beneath a silent tree and stopped speaking. There he waited, listened, let the complexity unravel. The forest began to dissolve. The noise faded, and in the stillness, one word emerged, not from his lips, but from his being: essence. When Cairo returned to the city, he no longer gave long speeches. He spoke little, but when he did, he moved hearts. This evolutionary challenge brings mental complexity and disconnection. In this 23rd challenge, carries a very ancient evolutionary tension rooted in the way our brains have evolved to protect, control, and categorize. From the tribal era to the digital age, the human mind has been shaped by the pressure to understand and be understood. It's a survival instinct. But as our minds grew sharper, something else happened. We began to overcomplicate our thoughts, our words, and our lives. The shadow of complexity arises when clarity becomes buried beneath fear, the fear of rejection, the fear of misunderstanding. We use words to protect, we use silence to hide, but neither is the real voice beneath it all. The complementary shadow to complexity is the shadow of deafness, and its fear of listening to our inner guidance. And its repressive nature is to be worried, and its reactive nature is to become noisy. So you can see how these two shadows feed off each other in a dance of low frequency consciousness. For those interested in doing deeper personal alchemy and wish to have a means of accelerating an understanding of shadow work, over the last 3 to 5 years, I have collected a wealth of information from various esoteric systems, namely the I Ching, human design, gene keys, the chakra systems, and astrology, as well as integrating them with the human genetic code. And in this chart, you will find the details of all the different shadows, all the different fears, the specific fears that fuel those specific shadows, all 64, all in relationship to each codon. And in this wheel, you will find 4 legends on each corner because they can't all fit on one corner or one side to make it a nice, evenly balanced square. So here is the statements from each zodiac sign, so you can see. And then we have the legend for each chakra, you'll notice that there are more than seven, and because there are more than seven, because it is including the spleen as a means to detect threats. So there's an intuitional center there. There's also a center of willpower called the thyroid, because when we are born, the thyroid is literally almost, if not as big as our heart. So we have to accommodate that. And on the other side of this, you will also find an understanding of the I Ching, hexagram system, the different trigrams, the relationship to the three-dimensional plane, the yin and the yang, and how each of the six lines are affiliated with different archetypes, thanks to the human design and or gene key system. And lastly, you will also find the human genetic sequence chart for all the amino acids associated with the human genetic code. But furthermore, you will also find in this chart all the different zodiacs, all 12, mixed with the human design gene key chart. Bear with me, my graphics card is not as fast as other people's on their computer, but you will see all the different fears, all the different shadows, and how they relate to each chakra in those colorful little dots. So you can see how it affects each energy center in the body and how each of them have their own repressive and reactive statements because there are six expressions in each challenge. Therefore, you will also find those six lines in there, all with their own repressive and reactive statements, their associated dilemmas from that specific shadow, which eventually will clear up, the gift from making the right choices regularly and practicing that gift with its own unique self-empowerment statement. So as you learn to vacate the trapped emotions such as sadness, fear, anger, shame, and guilt, and you reorient towards true self-alignment and honoring the intuition and inner authority that you possess, it will lead you towards the grace specific to that challenge. So if you would like to learn more about this and or you would like to download this file for your own personal means of translating your specific challenges in the human design system or in the gene key system, it is all there for you. All you have to go is to my website and download this PDF file. It's about 50 megabytes in size. I hope you enjoy this and hope you enjoy this brief glimpse into this massive PDF with all the details about all the specific challenges you'll have in your personal self-realization path. In order to find this PDF, a link will be found down below in the description of the YouTube video. When using that elaborate and vast chart of information, you can use the human design apps found in the App Store on Google Play so that you can choose whichever speaks to you most. And as you choose whichever human design app works best for you, you can then use that towards the chart. So you get your information and your numbers. And then after that, you can use the chart as reference. For example, I use the human design app, which helps me see the specific numbers that I need to see in the top right-hand corner. The red are the unconscious. These are the ones that were imprinted when the soul decided to remain anchored in the body about 90 days before you were born, between the second and the third trimester. The black numbers indicate the conscious, more aware challenges that you know you have in your current life, based on your survival challenges and your adversities currently going on in your life. You can also find that same application in the Human Design App Store for iPhone and or iOS before you start using the chart that you have purchased online. Thank you very much. And if you ever need more information on this and you wanted a free consultation in understanding the current challenges in your life and how it relates to human design, feel free to reach out through the links below. You can also visit thegenekeys.com. There, you will also find a different kind of chart, It relates to the same challenges and same numerical sequences as found in the I Ching and Human Design. And there you'll be able to find a free profile link where you can then enter in your personal information in this field and then have a look at your specific gene key profiles and understand your genus sequence, your Venus sequence in opening up your heart, your love sequence, prosperity, and finding inner harmony. Thank you for watching this short introduction into the Wheel of Evolutionary Change and the chart that I've shown you in brief. And hopefully through those apps and through this PDF, you will find a way to decode the challenges you face and understand how to make the best choices for you and everyone you are meant to impact positively in your life. Now back to the shadow work and the evolutionary change in this video. Why this shadow exists. This shadow isn't a flaw, it's a function. Complexity shows up when our mind is trying to protect us from the vulnerability of simply being. Complexity shows up when our mind is trying to protect us from the vulnerability of simply being seen. It's like a fog that your psyche creates layer after layer to keep one's core essence safer from harm. For some, this shadow shows up as repression, the dumb expression, where you silence yourself, believing your voice will only bring confusion or conflict. For others, it's reactive, fragmented pattern, where one speaks too much, too fast, trying to force people to hear us. Both patterns come from the same wound, the fear of being misunderstood. The role this shadow plays in collective human evolution. Here's a deep truth. Complexity is part of humanity's mental awakening. It's what happens when the intellect becomes overgrown, like a garden with too many vines and not enough flowers. As a species, we are moving from survival-based intelligence to spirit-based clarity. But we can't skip this shadow. We must meet the part of us that uses words like weapons or like shields. We can and must witness the part of us that feels too much or not enough to speak clearly. And we must walk through that fog with compassion, because on the other side of mental confusion is a mental grace. From the spiritual lens, this 23rd challenge is part of our ascension code. It teaches that our true power lies not in explaining who we are, but in being who we are. As we refine our relationship with speech, silence, and timing, we begin to enter what is called the gift of simplicity, a place where clarity flows naturally without force. This isn't about saying less. It's about saying what is true at the right moment with the right energy. And eventually, words begin to dissolve altogether. One becomes a living transmission of one's essence. This is the ascended state of quintessence. The importance of this shift. Why does this shadow matter so much? Because the voice between fear and grace is a choice between separation and unity. Complexity separates, simplicity integrates. The fear that someone will reject you, laugh at you, ignore you, that fear fragments us. But when one shifts from fear to trust, from performance to presence, one becomes a mirror for others to find their own clarity. This is the silent magic of the transmutation of this challenge. And that's why this challenge is not an obstacle. It's a sacred threshold. So remember, you don't need to solve this today. You don't need to fix your voice or perfect your message. All that's asked is that you witness your complexity. Notice where you overthink, where you withhold, where you perform. And instead of rushing to speak, just listen. That's the first step towards clarity, connection, and creative presence. If this touched something in you, you're not alone. One of many that we're moving through right now. If you like this video, please go ahead and hit that button. Subscribe if you want to go deeper into other evolutionary patterns of change that guide us towards our self-realization. You can even comment if you've felt this shadow in your own life. And remember, you don't have to say much. You just have to mean it. You can either move towards that next shadow in terms of understanding, or you can go to the next gate or challenge, and that's the shadow of addiction in Gene Key and or Human Design Gate 24, and it's fear of self-guided action. Thank you for watching this video in its entirety. In the description below, you will find my website, contact email. So if you ever want to have a one-on-one for 45 minutes for free, and let's get to the heart of what the self is trying to say. If not, and you want to learn or engage more with me from afar and from a more an anonymous way, you can use a meetup platform where I have 3 groups. One is called Divination Systems, which goes into more depth here in these challenges. The other is Emotional Intelligence and Mastery, so you can learn what your emotions have to say, the questions that they bring, so you can have a healthy dialogue with them. And after that, I have the Emotional Trauma Release Therapy group, where you learn ways of releasing your emotional trauma and baggage, and then creating space for what you want to embody instead moving forward. If you're kind of saturated by social media platforms, then you can still access those free resources through my website in the archive section. God bless you on your journey. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. And I look forward for you to take advantage of more of the content being shared. God bless you on your journey. Namaste and good life to you all.